All right, we're here with journalist and author Chase Madar, author of The Passion of Chelsea Manning. We're here at this event showcasing Clark Stoeckley's amazing drawings from the trial. And Chase, I just wanted to talk about a few things differently, and you made some great points also in your reading of the book and the questioning portion of it. The aspect, looking back now, since the last time we talked was before the trial happened, and just kind of a brief rundown, if you can, just your thoughts on what happened overall. We know she got 35 years in jail right now, so just your overall thoughts on what you saw, or your take on the trial itself.
So we've been talking about the court-martial tonight, thanks to Clark Stoeckley's terrific artwork. He's a one-of-a-kind artist. He makes great courtroom art that does not look like courtroom art, and that's why I love it. But the court-martial, what does it tell us? I think about 95% of the story was really determined before the court-martial even began. This was not a trial where there was really much doubt about the verdict. There was some question about how severe the sentence would be. I predicted along it would be between 30 and 50 years. That's what she got. This is not an example of a good, nice legal system being improperly manipulated to railroad somebody. What we have is something much worse. This is an example of a very bad legal system being used according to its own rules to reach its inexorable, inevitable outcome. And the only reason, let's go back and look at the trial of Ellsberg a generation ago. It's not like Ellsberg had somehow a magical lawyer or a more sympathetic judge, and that's why he was able to go free. The only reason Ellsberg went free is because the Nixon administration was even more criminal in the way they went after him. Blatantly criminal, clumsy criminal, stupid criminal. They were total meatheads, and they left that judge no choice but to declare a mistrial with prejudice, and that's why Ellsberg, who had always freely admitted his guilt, to go free. But Chelsea Manning did not have the good fortune of going up against the Nixon administration. The Obama administration is a lot smoother, not as dumb. Also, the media and the intelligentsia in the U.S. were very much on Ellsberg's side. That's not the case with Manning, where most of the mainstream media, even though they were happy to use the leaks that the private provided, they were happy to cast Manning as some kind of a weirdo who went too far and deserved to be punished. And so what do we have now? We have the sentence of 35 years after a verdict of guilty for all but two of the most serious charges. The long game for Chelsea Manning is getting some kind of presidential commutation. What are some previous examples of that? Well, you have the conservative Republican Warren Harding granting a commutation to Eugene Debs, the socialist, back in 1921. Harding always said that he did not like Debs at all or his politics, but he thought that it was cruel and against the First Amendment to lock him up for expressing his political beliefs during World War I. Will there be a president with that kind of maturity and good judgment and vision to grant a commutation or even a pardon to Chelsea Manning? I hope so. But I'm not going to lie, I don't see one immediately in the near future. I think it's impossible to imagine Hillary Clinton, right now the odds-on favorite for the next president, maybe 1 out of 3 chance right now, better than anyone else's odds, granting a commutation to Manning. Maybe some kind of, libertarian-minded Democrat or Republican who believes in civil liberties. But frankly, there aren't really any on the horizon. Rand Paul, I don't think has a real shot at the presidency. Will certainly run. That's almost imaginable. I'm not a Rand Paul supporter myself, but I think that would be a very good thing. were he elected and were he to do that. But the long game for Chelsea is to get the word out of why she did what she did, why it's important, why it's a good thing, why it's good for American security to know what our government is doing. And really the most effective advocate and spokesperson for Chelsea Manning is, of course, Chelsea Manning. And the op-ed that the New York Times published last Sunday, written by Chelsea Manning, was terrific. Very clear, focused, articulate, vivid statement about the need for more transparency, the need to know what our government is doing, and to shoot down this insane myth that we will all be better off if we make important decisions without knowing any of the facts, because that's what the government seems to want. The idea that you can make important decisions, anything, whether it's like you're buying a car, renting an apartment, or invading a foreign nation without knowing anything of the relevant information. And so I think the more Chelsea Manning speaks and writes for herself, the more people are going to like her, the more people are going to understand her, and the more people are going to realize that all along in this story, the responsible, ethical citizen has been Chelsea Manning, and the narcissistic, troubled, destructive jerks have been Manning's critics and persecutors in the government and even in the media.
And it shows, too, you put a really good point on about collateral murder, basically saying, I think it was one of the questions the audience made to you or to the panel, was the idea of it was war crimes or not. And like I think what you eloquently mentioned was it was based not off of the rules of engagement are written to make it legal. If you could get into that a little bit for people about how that was justifiable in their perspective about collateral murder or any other incident that's happened over there.
Yeah, this is maybe too fine a point or subtle point, but I think it's an important one. Many people, supporters of Chelsea Manning, have looked to the leaks as being evidence of war crimes that should be prosecuted. And it's easy to see why people think that. You see a lot of atrocities. The collateral murder is the most videogenic and the most vivid one. You see civilians getting gunned down by helicopter pilots and helicopter gunners who seem really indifferent. They're even kind of chuckling over it. But the really disturbing truth about the laws of war is that they really don't prohibit that much violence, even against civilians. The real purpose of the laws of war, contrary to a lot of, warm and fuzzy myths, is that their purpose is not to protect civilians. The purpose is to protect soldiers from legal liability. The real purpose is not to restrain military violence, but to authorize it, to optimize it. And the Geneva Conventions and other laws of war, of armed conflict, are incredibly malleable and elastic in the hands of a great military power like the United States. And that's a disturbing fact. And I say this, I want to be very clear, not to defend any of these atrocities, but really to condemn the laws of war, or at least to point out that they're very weak, that they don't have the good effect that many people wish they would have. There are a whole lot of lawyers who have made careers in this, who have a lot vested, who would really want to believe that adding more lawyers to war is the solution. But think about really how crazy that is. You think war is going to be nicer and kind of humanitarian and surgically precise if you just have more lawyers involved? I think most people who aren't lawyers will see through that one pretty quickly.
And just wrapping up here, for people listening or watching, I definitely encourage to check out your book also, which delves into more of the trial for people to learn about. And also Clark Stoeckley's book, which he premiered here tonight, along with one of the readings you gave, along with several other people in the panel. Where can people find your book and just anything else you'd like to add to that point?
Well, my book is called The Passion of Bradley Manning. I wrote it before Private Manning had changed her name legally to Chelsea and announced that. But the second edition is published by Verso Books, you should order it from your local small bookstore. I mean, you can get it online, but you can get The Passion of Bradley Manning from your local independent bookstore. Just ask for them to order. It's in paperback, second edition revised with bigger footnotes, bigger scholarly apparatus. And what I do in my book is provide a sympathetic portrait, a polemical defense, and I think most importantly, a panoramic sketch of all the very big issues that collide violently in this individual case. Whistleblowers and how we treat them, the Iraq War itself, solitary confinement. Is that an aberration in the United States, or is that more and more the rule of how we treat people? Knowledge, what power does it really have to change policy? Is it a magical catalyst, or is it something that without political muscle to use it doesn't have much effect? These are some of the themes that I examine through the facts of this case.
There's this pop culture idea of the trial in America, that the trial is the place where justice is done, where two equal sides battle it out to find the truth. And this is such bullshit. Anyone who has been in a court for any amount of time realizes that trials are not about truth. Trials are a factory farm where you take a person and you turn them into a prisoner.
I brought my truck down to Fort Meade for the first time, and I brought it down there for 2 months, drove it on base, and turned a lot of heads, dropped a lot of jaws.